Hey everyone, and welcome back. We're diving into a topic today that's, let's face it, a rite of passage for many student loans. We're going beyond the surface this time, uncovering those essential details that can really make a difference when you're navigating this world. Let's be real, almost everyone I know has at least considered some kind of financial help for college these days. So whether you're looking at those tuition bills right now or just want to be prepared, this deep dive is for you. Let's kick things off with the one and only, the infamous FAFSA.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie, I remember feeling so overwhelmed when I first had to tackle that thing.
It can definitely feel like a mountain of paperwork, that's for sure. The FAFSA, or Free Application for Federal Student Aid, is so important because it determines if you're eligible for federal aid. That includes grants, work-study programs, and you guessed it, student loans.
So it's basically the starting point for any kind of financial help you'd get from the government.
Exactly. And speaking of the FAFSA, you might have heard that the Expected Family Contribution, or EFC, has a new name now. The Student Aid Index, or SAI. It's not just a name change, though. There are some pretty important differences.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, for families who have, say, multiple kids in college at the same time, this could mean a big change in how much aid they qualify for, because the SAI doesn't take your siblings' enrollment into account anymore, which the EFC did.
Wow, that's a big deal. So how does this new SAI actually connect to, getting financial aid?
Good question. The SAI uses a different formula to figure out your family's financial situation, and that has a direct impact on how much aid you're eligible for. For example, the SAI is really important in determining if you qualify for a Pell Grant.
Right, those are basically free money for college, which is amazing.
Exactly. So yeah, those changes to how the SAI is calculated are definitely something to pay attention to.
Okay, so FAFSA, with this new SAI calculation, that's step one, and it tells you what kind of aid you're eligible for. What happens after that?
All right, so once you've done the FS, you'll start getting financial aid offers from all the schools you applied to and got accepted to. Now, these offers, they can feel a bit like reading a foreign language sometimes, but don't worry, we'll break it down.
Oh, I totally get that feeling. When those envelopes arrived in the mail, I swear I needed a decoder ring just to understand them. There's grants, work study, and then all those different loans too. What should people be looking out for first when they're trying to decipher these things?
That's a great question. The first thing to understand is that a financial aid offer is kind of like a piece of a puzzle. It shows what the school is willing to contribute, but it doesn't show the whole financial picture. You know what I mean? You still have to figure out how much your family can contribute on top of that.
So the financial aid offer isn't necessarily the total amount you'd have to pay. That makes sense? But within the offer itself, what should we be looking at?
You'll usually see a breakdown of a few things. Grants, scholarships, work-study opportunities, and then loan options. Grants and scholarships, that's the best kind of money you don't have to pay it back. Work-study is cool too. You get to earn money for school by working part-time, usually right there on campus. And then there are the loans, which can be a bit more, complicated.
Let's talk about work study for a minute, because I feel like there are some misunderstandings about that. What exactly is involved in work study?
Yeah, for sure. Work study is actually a really great opportunity for students to get some, real world experience while they're earning money to pay for school. It could mean working in the library, helping a professor with their research, or even doing some administrative work in one of the offices on campus.
So it's not just about making some extra cash, but also about building your resume and learning practical skills while you're studying. That's awesome. Okay, let's dive into those loans since, like you said, they can be a bit more complicated. What's the deal with subsidized and unsubsidized loans? I feel like those terms get thrown around a lot, but I bet some of our listeners might not be totally clear on the difference.
You're absolutely right. That's a really important distinction to understand. It makes a big difference in how much you'll end up repaying in the long run. So with subsidized loans, the government actually covers the interest on the loan while you're in school at least half-time during your grace period after you graduate. And if you ever have to defer your loans, it's like getting a break on the interest for a certain amount of time.
So basically, if you qualify, subsidized loans could save you a ton of money over time. That's huge.
Yeah, exactly. Now, unsubsidized loans, those are a little different. With those, the interest starts adding up from the moment you take out the loan, even while you're still in school, which means that the total amount you end up owing will be bigger in the end.
Okay, so definitely try to get as much in subsidized loans as possible if you qualify. But it's also important to know how unsubsidized loans work, just in case those are part of your financial aid package.
And that brings up a really common question. What if the federal aid you're offered isn't enough? What if it doesn't cover the full cost of attendance?
That's a tough spot to be in, for sure. A lot of families face that, and it can be super stressful trying to figure out how to make up that difference. So what are the options in that situation?
Well, there are a few different paths people can take. One option is something called a PLUS loan, which is where a parent can actually take out the loan on behalf of the student.
So PLUS loans are specifically for parents to help their kids pay for college.
Yep, exactly. And they usually have a higher borrowing limit than federal loans for students, which can be helpful if there's a big gap to fill. But, and this is important, PLUS loans require a credit check. So if a parent's credit score isn't so great, they might need to find someone to co-sign the loan with them, which, adds another layer of complication to the whole thing.
That's definitely something for families to keep in mind. Good credit is key for those PLUS loans. What if a PLUS loan isn't an option, though? Or what if it doesn't cover everything?
Right. So in those cases, that's where private loans come in. Private loans are offered by banks and other lenders, and they come with, let's just say, their own set of rules and terms.
I've heard that private loans can be kind of tricky compared to federal loans. Is there any truth to that?
Well, they definitely require some careful thought, that's for sure. One big difference is the interest rate. See, unlike federal loans, which usually have a fixed interest rate, private loans often have what's called a variable interest rate. So that means the interest rate can actually change over time, which makes it a lot harder to budget for your monthly payments.
Yikes. That sounds like it could turn into a bit of a roller coaster ride for your finances. Are there any other major differences between federal and private loans that our listeners should know about?
Yeah, another big one is flexibility. Federal loans often come with these things called income-driven repayment plans, which can be a lifesaver if you're having trouble making ends meet. Basically, they adjust your monthly payments based on your income and how big your family is, so it's a little easier to handle.
So it's like a safety net, in a way, which is really reassuring.
Exactly. And if something unexpected happens, like you lose your job or whatever, and you need to postpone your loan payments for a bit, well, federal loans tend to be more forgiving than private loans in those situations. They often give you more options for putting those payments on hold.
Man, it sounds like federal loans really have the advantage when it comes to flexibility and those fixed interest rates. Knowing all this really makes it clear how important it is to, max out those federal loan options before you even think about private loans.
Totally agree. It's all about having all the information so you can make the best choice for your own situation.
We've covered a lot of the financial details so far, which is super important, but I think it's time to step back a little and look at the bigger picture. Because choosing the right path for your education, it isn't just about the price tag or the financial aid package, right? So what advice would you give to our listeners who might be weighing their options and trying to figure out what's best for them?
That's such a good point. It's really crucial to think about your career goals, what you want to do in the future and how much you might earn. Let's say you're deciding between two schools, right? One might mean taking on a bit more debt, but maybe has a really specialized program in a field where there are lots of jobs, so you have a good chance of landing a well-paying job after you graduate.
So even if it means borrowing a bit more upfront, investing in the right education can actually pay off in the long run.
Exactly. It's about looking at the whole picture, not just the immediate cost. Now, of course, that doesn't mean you should just automatically go to the most expensive school or program. It's more about thinking about what you're passionate about, what you're good at, and whether your education will help you get a job that pays well enough to manage any debt you might have.
Right. It's about finding that sweet spot where what you love to do overlaps with a field that actually has good job prospects.
Absolutely. And don't forget about all the different paths you can take. A four-year university isn't the only way to have a successful career. There are vocational schools, certificate programs, even shorter courses that can give you specialized skills that are in high demand these days.
It's so easy to get caught up in that idea that a four-year degree is the only way to be successful. But there are so many other awesome options out there.
I know, right? It's all about finding what works best for you and your own goals.
I love how we're really broadening the idea of what education even means. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing at all. But no matter what you're thinking about, a four-year university or a shorter program, those loan decisions can feel really heavy, am I right?
Oh, for sure. They're big decisions, no doubt about it. It's so important to really understand, the long-term impact these choices can have. Remember, those monthly payments, they don't magically disappear after graduation, right?
That's the thing. It's so easy to get caught up in the moment, but you have to think about your future self, right? Borrow responsibly. Don't just go for the biggest loan you can get. Think about what will actually be manageable down the line.
100%. And it's not even just about making those monthly payments, it's about the bigger financial picture too. Like if you're putting a big chunk of your income towards student loans every month, that could affect, well, a lot of things. Saving up for a down payment on a house, investing in your future, even taking that dream job that might not pay as much at first, but could lead to amazing things down the line. It all gets impacted.
It's like a ripple effect. Those loan payments can touch so many parts of your life as you move forward. Definitely something to keep in mind when you're making these decisions.
Absolutely. It's all about finding that balance, investing in your education, but also setting yourself up for financial success in the long run, you know?
This whole conversation has been so insightful. Thank you so much for sharing all this knowledge with us.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, is there one really crucial piece of advice you would give to our listeners as they're trying to figure out this whole student loan thing?
That's a good question. I think the most important thing is to remember that, well, knowledge is power, right? The more you know about all the different loans out there, the interest rates, the different ways you can pay them back, and how those choices might affect your life later on, the better you'll be able to make the right decisions for you, the ones that match your own goals and dreams.
That is such great advice. Don't be afraid to ask questions, do your research, and really advocate for yourself throughout this whole process. It's your education, it's your future, so make those choices count. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the wild world of student loans. We really hope this conversation has given you the information and the confidence you need to tackle those financial decisions head on. Until next time, happy learning, everyone.